I am Audrey Whitlow, 36 years old. I used to believe that if I worked hard enough behind the scenes, the right people would eventually notice. But then the brass nameplate outside the conference room, once mine, was replaced without a word, and the door didn't even pause before closing. I didn't learn about the meeting from an official invite. It came from a passing comment near the break room, low, automatic, not meant for anyone in particular. Thought you'd transferred already? The sentence dropped flat, no punctuation. No one looked up. Back at my desk, I opened my inbox. No subject line with my name. No calendar hold, no message, but the main dashboard pulsed with an update town hall. Executive strategy alignment. I clicked out of habit. Access blocked. The shared drive for presentation materials, the one I built templates for, was no longer available to me. A grey pop-up appeared. You no longer have permission to view this folder. No exclamation mark. No explanation. Just a door shut without sound. I stood up, walked down the hall, tried the badge reader outside the executive conference room. Red light. Twice. No beep, no click, just stillness. Through the glass, I saw them. 12 seats, 11 occupied. One near the end stacked with copies of a deck I'd drafted last quarter. Familiar formatting, sharp corners, strategic margins. At the head of the table sat a new name card, Scott Hayward, Interim Strategy Officer, the same role I'd filled for 3 years with fewer words and no fanfare. I looked toward the wall. The brass plate that once held my name had been replaced. Same slot, same font. Just not mine anymore. Not even a scratch left behind. I turned, walked slowly back to my workspace. No one noticed. Inside my bag in the smallest pocket I found my badge. The photo was from 5 years ago. Blue shirt, buttoned too high, hair tucked in too neatly. I remember thinking I looked professional, capable. Now the badge didn't open anything. Not doors, not calendars, not shared spaces. I tried to log into the policy archive I'd curated for 4 departments. Another rejection. Then the dashboard prompted me to submit a feedback form on the new leadership. The cursor blinked. I closed the tab. No one had spoken to me. No one had announced a change. But everything had moved, silently, efficiently, as if I'd never been there at all. There's a glass I keep on the shelf above the sink. It has the company logo etched into the side along with the founding year in faded silver. One corner of the rim is chipped barely enough to notice unless you're looking. No one ever said it was a gift, but it appeared on my desk the year we hit our record numbers. A quiet token, not wrapped. No note. I stayed behind that week. Audit season. Everyone else filtered out by 6. I stayed past 10. I highlighted vendor duplicates in soft yellow, rewrote 3 error logs, reformatted the inventory ledgers when the auto sort glitched. Nobody asked. Nobody offered. When the numbers cleared, Scott forwarded a recap email with a generic subject line. Great team effort. Well done all. No name. No mention. No one paused by my desk. At the partner signing that fall, I stood behind the line of executives while the press photos were taken. The backdrop was tight. Too much movement made it wrinkle. I tucked my ID badge into my pocket, fixed a corner of someone's nameplate before they stepped up. When they smiled for the cameras, I was holding a tray of extra pens off to the side. One of them was mine. It didn't come back. During the logistics milestone for government compliance, I handed the final packet to Zach in the elevator. He didn't look up, just flipped to the summary page, closed it, and mumbled, "She's good at getting things polished." Polished. Like I was the cloth, not the hand. I remember working through the quarterly update deck, revising supply chain diagrams line by line, making sure color schemes aligned across regions. The next day, Derek skipped straight to the slide with his initials. He clicked, he smiled, he nodded. The chart loaded without a flicker. I knew every formula behind it. No one asked who checked it. There's still a pen mark inside the left cuff of the navy dress I wore the night our operations review passed at all 4 regional sites. I noticed it while brushing my hair before bed. I never washed it out. There's something about mistakes no one sees that makes them easier to carry. No one ever asked what that quarter required. Not time, not sleep, not acknowledgement, just space. There's a card on the break room corkboard, thumbtacked just above the coffee sign-out sheet. Cream background, a faint gold edge, words stamped in italic font. To the whole team, couldn't have done it without you. No name written. The handwriting is mine. I bought the card from the office supply store down the street, choosing one with thicker paper. Left it there one evening after the rollout, thinking it might soften the fatigue that hung in the room. No one mentioned it. No one took it down. At the recognition ceremony, my name was read with the syllables out of order. The vowel was too sharp, clipped in a way that didn't belong. I stood anyway, crossed the room in low heels that squeaked once on the polished tile. The envelope I received was printed off-center, my job title truncated mid-word. Someone near the back laughed quietly. I didn't stop walking. The following Monday, a poster of top contributors went up near reception. A team photo from the previous quarter, edited, resized. I remembered the day we posed for it. I wore a scarf folded into a careful triangle, stood just right of center hand at my side. The printed version ended at someone else's shoulder. I was no longer in the frame. A week after that, the newsletter called the project a triumph of collaborative ingenuity. The phrase sat under a header where names were listed alphabetically. Mine was skipped, not misspelled, not shortened, just absent. On the project wall near logistics, laminated images marked key milestones. In the photo labeled Year of Acceleration, there's an elbow on the far left. Blurred. Barely part of the image. The caption doesn't match the faces. One person asked while pointing, "You weren't part of that phase, right? I brought in lemon cake once, not for myself, but for someone else's birthday. Left a note that read, 'Let's pause together.' They cut into it before the morning meeting. By the time I passed the kitchen, only crumbs and paper napkins remained. 2 months later, my birthday passed. No messages, no mention. The tea selection was down to rooibos and something mint. No one noticed I was there. Last I checked, someone had gone over my pencil note on the department calendar with correction fluid. A reminder about rotating backups. The word vendor still ghosts underneath the white film, faint but stubborn. The binder I had prepared sat untouched on the credenza near the screen. Blue vinyl cover labeled spine, each tab printed in black ink from the machine that always jammed unless you fed it sheet by sheet. I had indexed the entire report, cross-referenced forecasts with archived vendor audits, checked for decimal drift in 3 systems. No one asked to see it. No one moved it. It stayed there, closed, obsolete. The screen brightened. Scott stood in front of it, one hand in his pocket, the other holding the remote. Slide after slide, the format was mine. The diagrams were mine. The logic behind the growth projections, mine. The colors I'd picked to separate fiscal quarters appeared exactly as I left them. At the bottom of slide 5 in pale gray text, a line, "Data synthesized by Strategic Coordination Unit." There was no such unit. There never had been. The work had passed through my hands line by line on nights when even the janitor stopped saying hello. But now it belonged to a department that didn't exist. No one glanced in my direction. The applause wasn't loud, but it landed. I watched the VP nod slowly, his pen tapping once against his notes. Afterward, Scott walked by my chair and patted my shoulder. His palm hovered a second too long. Appreciate the support behind the scenes. No one plays the backdrop like you. I didn't flinch, just recorded the sentence in the back of my notebook under a new heading, Attribution Deferred. Later, by the shredder bin, I spotted the draft. The one I had spent 3 weeks finalizing. It lay folded damp along the spine, stained by the base of a takeaway cup. The red pen marks were still there, softened by moisture, but clear enough to read. My initials in the upper right corner had been smudged into the paper. I checked the internal summary email. My name appeared near the bottom of the CC list. The spelling was off 2 letters reversed. I hovered over it. No underline, no suggested correction. No one replied all. They didn't fire me. They didn't demote me. They didn't say anything. They simply wrote over the space where my name used to be and kept the rest intact. The cardboard box that had once held copier paper. One corner sagged inward from a shipping dent. I chose it over the cleaner ones. The damage made it easier to lift. Deployed, I laid items one by one, careful not to stack anything too tightly. The pen went first, then the notebook, and last the group photo. The edges had curled slightly over time. I didn't try to flatten them. The silver nameplate came off without resistance. I had to wiggle it a little from its plastic holder, but it didn't leave a mark behind. The space it occupied on the desk felt strangely neutral once it was gone. No outline, no discoloration, no sign that anything had been there at all. I removed the mug I'd stopped using weeks earlier, not because I didn't want it, but because someone else had used it and left it in the sink overnight. The stain along the bottom never quite came out. I placed it inside the box upside down. The desk drawers held only a few remnants spare batteries, an old charger cord, a clipped keycard to a supply room I hadn't entered in over a year. Nothing sentimental. Nothing worth leaving behind. I logged out of every shared folder, deleted my display photo from the internal profile directory, changed access rights on all dashboards I had created. Each project I'd built was still there, but no longer mine. I didn't leave notes or instructions. They knew how to reach me if they needed something. I trusted they wouldn't. At reception, I placed my badge next to the plastic container of mint wrappers. No envelope. No announcement. The corner of the card had split slightly. The lamination peeled just enough to catch the light. I pressed it flat with one finger, then left it. The voicemail message was short. "You've reached Audrey Whitlow. I'm unavailable at this time. No instructions. No promise to call back." The photo I kept in my drawer, 5 people, smiling arms linked, was from a holiday party years ago. My face had faded more than the rest, not from handling, just from sunlight. I kept it in the box anyway, though no one in the photo still worked there. No one noticed I had packed. No one asked if I'd forgotten something. The apartment is smaller. The walls are painted in a pale shade I didn't choose, and one of the windows sticks halfway when I try to open it. The floors creak unevenly, especially near the kitchen where a tile is chipped underfoot. But the light pours in without effort, and for now that's enough. I found a wooden table at the flea market near the train station. 2 legs wobble unless you press your weight just right. I keep my tea things there stacked neatly in a corner. 1 chipped cup, a tin of loose leaf, and the jade green teapot I bought for $6, no lid. No box. The vendor wrapped it in newspaper. I didn't ask for anything else. In the mornings I walk, not fast, not to get anywhere, just to trace a circle I don't have to report. The bakery on the corner always smells like cardamom and sugar. The bookstore keeps the same display in the window for weeks, as if no one expects it to change. I stood in the doorway once. The clerk glanced up, then back down. No name tag, no greeting. I liked that. My calendar is empty now. The default reminder tone doesn't chime. I haven't turned it back on. There's a cactus by the window. I brought it from the old office in the same cardboard box as the pen and the photo. It leans slightly toward the glass, tilted like it remembers a different sun. One of its arms bent during the move. I thought it might not recover, but each week it looks a little firmer. Still slanted. Still alive. The mug I use has a hairline crack along the rim. The glaze flakes slightly where my lip meets the porcelain. I keep using it. It fits in my hand better than the new ones would. Some mornings I trace the edge with my thumb before I pour the water. At night, I sit on the floor with a blanket wrapped around my knees. I read a few pages, sometimes the same ones twice. I leave the window cracked, even when it's cold, because the breeze feels like proof of something. There are no meetings, no agendas, no minutes to draft. My voice doesn't rehearse answers anymore. I passed by a man wearing a suit the other day. He reminded me of a former director, sharp jawline, frayed cuff, rushed gait. He brushed past me without looking. For a moment, I thought he might stop. He didn't. The subject line read, Special Collaboration Opportunity, Strategic Realignment. It arrived at 6:03 a.m., tucked between a newsletter I never subscribed to and a shipping confirmation for a book I hadn't ordered yet. The tone was polite, professional, weighted down with just enough flattery to make the intent feel less transactional. But it didn't mention what mattered. Not once. I let it sit unread for 3 days, not because I didn't understand it, because I did. The second email came with a scheduling link. We'd love to explore mutual alignment in light of current organizational shifts. No names, no apology, just calendar slots and a line about honoring prior contributions. When the call came, the voice on the other end used my full name. Paused, then offered a compliment that felt worn thin from overuse. Your fingerprints are still all over the structure, Derek said. We didn't realize how much depended on what you built. I didn't respond. The silence stretched long enough for him to clear his throat. There's no replacement yet, he continued. We're hoping you'd consider guiding the transition, just to stabilize things. I looked down at the notepad in front of me. The corner had been torn, the tear running diagonally across the page. I traced the edge with my thumbnail. He waited. It's not a rehire, he added, voice tighter now. It's a short-term advisory role. You wouldn't need to be visible. That word sat longer than the rest. 2 days later, a box arrived at my door. No return address. Thick ivory ribbon. Inside, wrapped in tissue, was a glass decanter and a note card. Blank. No signature. No message. The kind of gift sent by people who still think impression matters more than memory. I didn't unwrap the decanter, just placed the box still sealed beside the recycling bin. A friend forwarded me a screenshot from an internal slide deck, the same format I used to standardize. One slide outlined unforeseen compliance exposure due to overdelegation. Another listed risk factors tied to key staff role discontinuities. I saw my initials faint in the document history. There was a third email. This one mentioned urgency, stakeholder confidence, external perception. The words blurred into each other. Still no mention of what they'd done. Still no sentence that began with we. Among the messages, not one asked where I'd been, or if I had landed somewhere softer, or if I still carried any of it. They weren't reaching out to rebuild anything, just to stop the unraveling. The watch feels heavier now, not because of time, but because I stopped treating it like something I needed to earn. It sat in a drawer for years, face down, still ticking. My mother wore it during interviews, church services, rent negotiations. It never asked for attention, just kept count. I wear it now. Not as inheritance, not as proof, just because it fits my wrist and tells the truth without decoration. I send invoices under my own name now. There's a line at the top, consulting lead, inventory and flow strategy. The first time I saw it printed, the ink bled slightly at the edges, cheap toner on budget paper. I kept the page anyway, folded it once and slid it into the back of my wallet. It's still there, creased, softened, legible. The bookstore warehouse is small all stacked unevenly with boxes labelled in 2 different handwriting styles. One belongs to the owner, jagged and rushed. The other is mine. Cleaner. Not better. Just steadier. Each morning I review incoming stock numbers while the kettle hisses. My laptop's corner is cracked and the trackpad skips if I press too hard. Still, it does what I need. The reports I send don't go through layers of approval. No one edits my phrasing. No one rewrites my bullet points to sound more like someone else's authority. When a vendor missed a shipment deadline last week, I sent a note, direct, factual, without apology. The reply came 3 hours later with tracking and a short message. Noted. That was enough. One customer at the storefront insisted she'd been overcharged. Loud, insistent, arms crossed. I double-checked the system, printed her receipt, and offered a refund without fanfare. She hesitated, looked at the printout, then muttered something about people not knowing how to handle conflict anymore. I didn't flinch. I didn't fold. I watched her leave and return to restocking the display. Later, a part-timer asked how I kept from reacting. Her voice dropped before the last word. You carry quiet, like armor. I didn't answer, but I touched the edge of my sleeve where the stitching had started to fray. Not everything needs mending right away. There's a rhythm now, not rushed, not rigid. I set the pace. I stopped for lunch without checking anyone's calendar. The silence between tasks feels like permission, not punishment. The watch ticks evenly through it all. The envelope was standard cream-colored, no logo, no return address. I de-sealed it with the pressure of my thumb and pressed along the edges twice, not because I had to, but because finality asks for deliberation. Inside a copy of my old employment contract, printed on home paper with slightly faded ink, and a note, handwritten in the clean, slanted print I used only for formal letters. I no longer belong to this system. My name does not need to remain. No date. No greeting. No forwarding number. At the post office, I stood in line behind a man returning a box of phone accessories. The clerk scanned barcodes without looking at faces. I slid my envelope forward, paid in cash, declined the receipt. The email account I'd used for over a decade took 15 minutes to delete. Before clicking confirm, I scrolled through the inbox once. Travel confirmations, meeting requests, articles forwarded late at night with the subject line might be useful. I paused on one message subject line, empty body, a single line. Don't overcomplicate things. Just support the final version. There was no name at the bottom. I closed the tab. Changing usernames wasn't hard. A few platforms didn't recognize the new email yet, and one form needed re-verification. I didn't insist. I let the pages time out, The hard hat with the company crest had a small crack near the rim, a line I hadn't noticed before. I placed it in the garbage bag beside expired tea, a broken umbrella, and a cracked keychain flashlight. I tied the bag and took it out with the rest of the week's waste. No ceremony, just weight being removed. My bookshelf held a single flash drive, now tucked behind a dictionary I hadn't opened since graduate school. The metal casing had dulled at the edges. I'd labeled it with a strip of masking tape, "Do not reopen." I hadn't added a password. I hadn't needed to. Later that evening, a notification popped up. An old colleague had endorsed my skills on LinkedIn. The platform asked if I wanted to thank them. Instead, I selected Delete Profile. A short confirmation blinked across the screen. There were no follow-up questions, no prompts to reconsider, just a blank space where an identity used to be catalogued. I turned off the monitor and looked at my reflection in the black glass. It didn't echo anything back. Not a past, not a request. The old jade-coloured porcelain kettle sat quietly on the stove, its handle worn down on one side. I didn't polish it. The steam rose slowly, fogging the lower edge of the window. The newspaper was flat on the table, untouched. The print headlines held their place undisturbed by red marks or corner folds. I didn't circle anything. I didn't clip an article for later. Next to it sat my chipped mug, the rim still slightly jagged, but it fit my hand well. The tea inside was warm enough, not hot, and tasted exactly as I liked it, plain, uncorrected. Out on the balcony, the lavender plant was budding again. I couldn't recall the last time I watered it. Still, it had survived. Its stem leaned subtly toward the light, not by force, just by quiet instinct. A soft breeze lifted one edge of the white curtain. It didn't disturb anything. The room held steady. On the floor, a thick cream envelope was slid under the leg of a flower pot. Special collaboration offer, printed in bold across the front. I hadn't opened it. I hadn't thrown it away. I simply didn't need what was inside. In the back drawer of my desk, I folded the old letter from the company one more time. The paper had softened over time, the corners slightly rounded. I used to read it again and again, trying to find something I missed. Today I slid it beneath a stack of receipts and closed the drawer. Not discarded, just no longer active. When I passed the mirror near the doorway, I stopped. Not to fix anything, but to look. My reflection didn't require approval. My hair was tied with an old cloth band, faded red, the same one my mother used when I was 12. I left it that way. There were no calls, no urgent texts, no one demanding to know where I was or what I planned. No quick questions marked as high priority. The silence didn't echo. It simply remained. I never imagined that no one calling could become the most beautiful sound of the morning. And I understood, presence that asks for no validation is the most complete form of being I've ever known.